Understanding Group and Ungroup. We are now on page 31, the subject of Group and Ungroup. We have looked at grouping a little throughout some of our lessons, but here we will look at it in depth. Over here on the left, I have a group of a number of groups. In other words, you can group many objects and then also do a group of master group and group them all together if you want to. Why do we want to do that? Well, effectively, so that we can just simply deal with a whole lot of objects as though they were one object. Resize them so they all resize together. You know, we can rotate, we can skew, we can do whatever as though it were all one object. That's the advantage of grouping. So let's create our first group. I am going to create this one up here. Group 1. I will place that object, and then I will place that object. Now place that one there, and all I have to do is select all of the objects either with a marquee or select them individually. And then I can use Control-G on my keyboard. I can right-click and use Group or Work with the property bar, which I tend to do personally, and click Group. So now we have a group of objects. And of course, we can deal with that group as though it were one object. Well, over here on your right-hand side, we are going to create a series of groups. We are going to create a group of the highlight and the green ball of the highlight, and then we will finally add the text and then group the whole thing, so there will be 3 groups in total. Of course, the reason we want to do this is oftentimes once we position something or a set of objects exactly how we want them, we don't want to have to deal with them individually anymore. So grouping them together gives us the advantage of manipulating them as one, or just literally moving them around as one. So once I have this where I feel I might be about right, I can select all 4 and then group them together. Now, of course, when I deselect and I have to click once, I have all within that group. Click again, and I can just skew the whole group together, and that looks about right. Pop it up a little bit more. Now that I'm happy with my ball, I can select the green background and the highlight and group them together. Group, so that's group 2. Eventually taking my piece of text, place them on top, select the whole thing, and I will group that together, and that's group 3. And now I have group 1 and group 2. Group 1 is a whole bunch of individuals. Group 2 is a group of groups. Okay, if I want to select an object within a group, I can simply use this option here called the Pick tool. So hold your finger on the Control key, click once, and you see that I have the square in the background. Keeping my finger on Control, I can select various objects while I hold my finger on Control. If I do the same thing with this group of groups, finger on Control, the first thing that will happen is everything will be selected. Now if I click again, I can select that piece of text. Now when I click here, I'm going to get the whole thing again because I am clicking on a group. Remember? The green and the white squares are all grouped together. Hold finger on Control, and then I can select a group of white highlights. Finger on Control again, and I can select the individual object within that group. So you can actually get to varying objects within groups. Now this is interesting. Over here on group 1, let me grab my piece of text, and I will just pop that up here, and as you can see, it's sitting behind the red square. I can simply go Control Page Up, and it comes to the front. Now if I want to select this, finger on Control, and go all the way behind the maroon square. Control Page Down, Page Down, Page Down, and now that's behind the maroon square. It's pretty easy to work with. However, it's a little different when dealing with groups of groups. Finger on Control, and I will select that piece of text and place it over the top. Now that's on the top of the stacking order of this set of groups. Now if I go Control Page Down, watch what happens. It goes all the way behind the green circle. Why? Well, think about it. I have got this piece of text here selected, and I will tell you to go down 1 on the stacking order. But remember group 2, that's the white highlight and the green circle grouped together. So I guess in terms of they should get, say, it's almost considered the single object. So my text has gone all the way behind the green ball because this is a group of white objects and the objects are a group. So control page up, we will bring it all the way to the front of that group. So really, technically, if I want to go behind the white highlights, well, I'm going to have to ungroup. So select that, click Ungroup. Now control page down, and I have still gone behind. Why is that? Now this is where you can really get confused. We created 3 groups, and I just clicked Ungroup once. See, that's group 1 right there. So when I clicked Ungroup, all I did was ungroup the text. The second group is still there. Now what I need to do is ungroup that group. So control page down, and now my text is underneath that group of objects. Can you see that? It can be a little confusing, I know. Well, another way to look at this. Let me just Control Z and go back toward all grouped together. Okay, well, all grouped together here, right? So what I could do is select this and then click Ungroup All, and what that does is automatically ungroups every group we know within the entire selected range. So now every object is individual. Then, of course, I could reselect that and group it and then control page down, and I'm sitting underneath the group of white objects. Does that make sense? Okay, finally, I will just Control G this time, group that together. I am just going to place this over the top, here like that. I do want you to see this. Now as I go, control page down, the entire group and all its objects go to behind that group. Okay, so groups move through the stacking order as though they were single objects. Just keep that in mind. And that's really all I want to show you. So remember, ungroup or ungroup all, and then pick a tool. Well, let's move on to our next lesson. You can come and have a play with all of this and see how you are going.